Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the most influential, powerful and a truly global FinTech event, Singapore FinTech Festival and the World FinTech Festival. Now this day is filled with a number of exciting and powerful discussions. I am your host Amit Sharma and I will be with you all the way till the end, bringing to you these conversations and discussions from the Indian FinTech ecosystem. Now whether we realize this or not, the world we live in has changed. And let me tell you, change is never for good or for worse. In fact, change is the only constant. And in this new world, the winner is the one who finds out about the next move first. And we at World FinTech Festival are already in day 2 of that next move. Our first session of the day is a panel discussion on Livestock Registry for smallholder farmers and the role of digital financial services. And joining us today's first session, we have Mr. Roy Lai, co-founder and CEO of InfoCorp. Welcome to the session, Roy. And our next panelist is Dr. Rajeshwaran Selvarajan. He's a professor of Development Management Institute in Patna. We welcome you to this panel, Dr. Rajeshwaran. And joining them, we have Mr. Satyanarayan Nanda, Regional Manager and in charge, Oriental Insurance. Welcome to the show, Mr. Satyanarayan. And completing the panel, we have with us Ms. Aditi Singh from Investor Relations and Corporate Communication at Satincredit Care. Welcome to the discussion, Aditi. And with that, I will now hand over this session to our moderator for this session, Mr. Roy Lai. Over to you, Roy.
Yeah, certainly changed the way we live our lives. It's changed the way we travel. It's changed the way we work and even the way we attend conferences like this one. But has it changed the way we think about how we solve problems? Now, in many large agrarian countries, smallholder farmers made up more than 80% of the country's farmer population. In India, smallholder farmers own less than 2 hectares of land per household. Now, according to India's 2016 agriculture census, 86.2% of the farmers in India are smallholder and contribute to 17% of the GDP. At the same time, they are also the most financially vulnerable segment of the population. Now, farming is subjected to the mercy of Mother Nature. It's a low-margin business, highly labor-intensive. Most smallholders lack access to affordable working capital, lack the means to improve productivity and their farm income. So it is difficult to maintain a sustainable livelihood. So according to FAO, 80% of the global food supply depends on smallholder farmers. And the world's food demand is expected to increase 70% by 2050. If this is true, then the plight of smallholder farmers will have a profound effect on the global food security as well. Now, but smallholder farmers are not necessarily poor. They may own assets such as cattle that has high inherent value, but they lack the ability to convert this value into liquidity. This is called dead capital. So, underlying this an agriculture problem, it's a financial problem. If the Uber, Grab, and Airbnb of the world can unlock the dead capital in our cars and houses, then this financial problem can be solved if smallholder farmers can unlock the dead capital in their livestock. So this leads us to the discussion topic today, and that is Livestock Registry for smallholder farmers and the role of digital financial services. My name is Roy Lai. I'm the moderator for this team of highly qualified panel of speakers today, with experts coming from both the livestock and financial industry. Dr. Rajesh Warren, Ms. Aditi, Mr. Nanda. In this session, we will look at what the experts have to say about how the ecosystem can work together in improving the financial health of smallholder farmers. Now, let us start by going through one round of self-introduction about who we are and what we do. And let me begin with myself. Right. Once again, my name is Roy. I'm the founder of InfoCorp, and I'm a Singaporean. And a lot of people ask, what does Singaporean know about livestock? Right? The only livestock we know about what we see in the supermarkets. Right? Now, I come from a tech background, working for different international corporations around the world from different industry sectors, from Procter & Gamble in FMCG, to Brunswick, manufacturer of bowling balls, to Royal Bank of Scotland in investment banking, and to the Singapore Interbank payment industry. Now, one thing I have learned is that cross-pollination of ideas across industries is necessary for innovations. And I still see a lot of opportunities for innovations to impact millions of lives. But it gets harder to hop from industry to industry as my age gets older. Right? So that's why I founded InfoCorp in 2015. And InfoCorp is a blockchain solution company. that brings together the FinTech and Agri-Tech in addressing financial inclusion for smallholder farmers. Our technology farm track is designed to enable smallholder farmers to convert their livestock and farm assets, such as cattle, into digital asset on the blockchain so that it can be used as collateral for financing. Now, the blockchain has given us the opportunity to work inclusively and address the problem of third-party trust. Now, besides running InfoCorp as my day job, I'm also a lecturer at the Singapore University of Social Science, where I teach blockchain technologies for real-world applications. And now I will invite our first speaker, Dr. Rajesh Warren, to introduce himself. Doctor.
I'm Dr. Rajesh Warren, and I'm a livestock specialist working in the policy space today. I have work about 38 of years experience in the field as such. And presently, I'm a professor in the Development Management Institute at Patna, Bihar. And DMI is an institution developed by the government of Bihar, state government of Bihar, with the objective of enhancing the rural sector of the Bihar in terms of livelihoods. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aditi.
Yeah. Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Aditi Singh, and I work with Satincredit Network Limited, which is an NBFC MFI, which is a microfinance, basically financial institution. So we actually give loans to women, and that too, if I may say, bottom of the pyramid, wherein these women get a very small ticket size loan, like in terms of USD, if I may, it's a $400 to $500 loan per person. And we give this loan without any collateral. So it's a group of women, which we call a joint liability group, who all come together and make a group and give a social guarantee sort of for each other that they will cover each other in case of any error. And that's how we do our own work in the rural India in the sense of empowering these women, having a livelihood of their own. They are micro entrepreneurs of India with aspirations of their own. We have around 3.2 million clients in 23 states, and overall asset under management for Satin will be more than $1 billion USD. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditi. Mr. Nanda.
Can you hear me? I'm Satyanarayan Nanda. Good morning, everyone. I'm working in the Oriental Insurance Company, which is one of the premier general insurance company in India. Our headquarters are in New Delhi, but I am stationed in Bhubaneswar, which is the capital of Odisha. In fact, I am the Odisha Oriental Insurance in charge. And basically, we deal with all types of general insurance products. Our insurance covers which we roll out range from rural insurance to property insurance, vehicle insurance. In fact, a part of the health insurance, everything is being dealt with by our companies. And we are associated with both urban sector and rural sector as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nanda. So earlier on, I spoke about the pandemic is fast-tracking changes. So can you share with us your insights to all the panelists, right, on what kind of changes are you seeing in your respective areas, particularly to the rural India population as a result of this pandemic? And how is it affecting the financial landscape? Okay, maybe we can start with Dr. Rajesh Warren.
Yeah. As of date, of course, Satin is working in the financial inclusion space, is already working. But I think we have not even tapped a drop in the ocean in terms of financial inclusion in the rural sector space as such, especially with the use of technologies. I mean, I think Satin must be using technologies to the hilt, I'm sure. And they would actually, in fact, I think Aditi will be the better person to tell about the opportunities which they as a company and she as an individual see in terms of financial inclusion space. Financial inclusion consists of two parts. One is the credit and one is the insurance, risk cover, the financial risk cover. And these are actually two sides of the same coin. I mean, Satin would not get into the business of financing without covering their own back. as such. Okay. So whenever we talk to that's natural, because a farmer is going to be a risk-averse person rather than a profit-oriented person. First is whatever he or she has should not be lost. That's a primal source of strength for any human being. Saying that I don't want to lose what I have first. That's the first thing. And then if I gain something, it's perfectly okay. But so I am very, very optimistic and hopeful that tech can literally sweep the financial inclusion space to a different fold altogether. And I normally use example as the Ola taxi or this Uber taxi cab situation, where with just a few hundreds of people, you can run crores of lakhs, millions of taxis and millions of customers without human interface. Without human interface. Okay, everyone knows English to read and write, perfectly okay, but you can now get into local languages. So one is an opportunity is there in terms of technology, and the second is a language. When India being a country of vast languages, you know how many thousands of languages are there. The opportunity to tap into the language is huge. So tech and language are two things why I put my complete conviction upon language and tech. You combine these two, you are in any business, just not only livelihood business, any business you are in there. Right? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajeshwaran. Aditi?
Yeah.
You have anything to add?
Yes. So, like Roy, you rightly said that the pandemic has actually changed the lives. So, and you know, both lives and livelihoods have been impacted, have been affected, and things are not the way they were earlier. But in this new normal also, I would say from experience that rural India has been much more, sturdy, and their incomes have been much more stable. And that I would attribute to two things. One, they were not impacted by the infection, and B, their livelihoods was into essential services. So the rural India, which produces crops, which produces milk, and so we never stopped eating in the pandemic. If at all, we ate some more. So that means that their livelihood was not at all impacted. However, it's interesting to see it state-wise. Like if I cite UP, for instance, where we are the largest in prisons. So UP, Western UP has more dependence on Delhi NCR for selling its milk, its produce, etc. So there was some impact. Central and Eastern UP is towards Bihar. So they were much better off. Bihar, if I may say, Bihar has the best culture in terms of microfinance behavior, credit behavior. It's the best in all over India, if I may say. Despite the poverty, despite the impression you must have that they must not be, able to pay their debts. But Bihar faced a problem of the reverse immigration, which we all saw, that all the labor they returned to their natives. But that was a knee jerk and things came back to normal. Though, of course, it was made worse by the floods that followed, but Bihar actually got much better. Then if
what is your view? What is your view of the effect of the reverse immigration to the rural population?
Actually returned, Roy. So it was bad. Initially, it was bad. It was also bad in the terms of fear of infection, etc. But surprisingly, the state government did a lot of good work in terms of, isolation of the people who came. And of course, testing has picked up now, which wasn't earlier. And you have to give it because the size of India and the kind of resources we have. But the state governments actually did a lot of good work. And in fact, the government of India's compensation to the migrants, etc., to the people who were below poverty line, we know it from experience, it reached them. Otherwise, we would never have got our business back on its, back on its feet. So the government actually, with whatever limited resources they had, trying to, and of course, if you talk about microfinance, we of course see many who still do not want to go. They would want to, start a business of their own. And in rural India, it will be either selling milk. So certain, if I say, we have 75% people who are doing animal husbandry. Then they would be, selling their, or weaving something, some small carpets, some saris, some handlooms, etc. But majorly it is into the essential services. So that is, of course, the scope for microfinance, which is actually increasing. And then, like I said, the state of Bengal. So Bengal again had a problem around Kolkata because those people depend on the local trains to sell whatever, even if it is essential services, they go and sell it in Kolkata and the bigger. So when the lockdown happened, the local trains stopped, their livelihood was impacted despite being in the rural belt. So these are just a few examples to see that India, every state has its own, dynamics, which is but normal. And we can study each state like a country, and we have a case study. Like Rajasthan was perfectly all right. Rajasthan, people even kept servicing their debt despite the moratorium allowed by the RBI because they were not impacted much.
Okay.
States of Punjab and Haryana, they were just fine. Their livelihood was not at all impacted. In fact, there was no lockdown in the rural India, if I may say. And there was no cases of infection either. And like we have 7,000 and more feet on street, the loan officers, and we give doorstep delivery to the 3.2 million clients which we have. And barring a few instances, things were perfectly all right. Orissa, Dr. Nanda, Mr. Nanda can say better, but Orissa again, despite some earlier challenges which it was still suffering from, it was doing still okay in terms of the pandemic, the livelihood, etc.
Maybe Mr. Nanda can share with us a little bit about
Sure,
the insurance situation.
So yeah, so this is about the pandemic. However, Roy, the topic that you mentioned about the livestock, because the smallholder farmers, that's why agriculture can't be their only way of livelihood. So rural India, actually, the image that we have, it's not the same. They have ambitions, they do work. And one household has 3 to 4 sorts of income. It's not just one income. It's not just farming. If the husband does farming, the wife maybe has a cow or a buffalo. The daughter-in-law maybe is sewing something, or maybe, and the son-in-law might be working somewhere as a mechanic, etc. Yeah. So they have 3 to 4 sources of income, and they have aspiration, but they also have the means and the labor which they put. And so, of course, and livestock, that's why is very important for them. And like I already told, for us also, the clients, majorly they do livestock. In livestock also, I was surprised. So if you look at the India livestock data, we have around 30 to 40 million animals in India, which is the largest in the world, followed by Brazil,
Aditi,
USA.
I know that you're working data sheet, all right, but we will come to that later. Right? Sure, maybe now we can hear from Mr. Nanda on his views of the changes in the insurance.
Correct. Basically, you had asked us a question like how the pandemic has affected the rural economy. It is, although I will be taking the reference of Odisha, but it is in general, it is applicable throughout the rural India. Number one, the migration of laborers. The migration, there are many parts of this state, and there are also in Bihar and in other areas of the country where people have migrated from the rural area to the urban area in the past. In the urban area for the purpose of employment. Basically, it is for the purpose of employment. People have gone to places like Surat and other industrially developed areas in Gujarat where they are working. And they were leading a good life. Now, the pandemic has suddenly changed the whole thing. The urban economy has collapsed. The urban economy having collapsed, the industries closed. Now, what happened? There has been a migration from the urban areas to the rural areas. Although the transportation activities were completely stopped, but still people somehow managed, and the government of Odisha also managed to bring these people from the other parts of the country to Odisha. You were referring to Ganjam. Many people have migrated from Ganjam, and now they came back. But they came back with the hope that the employment opportunities would be available in the rural areas. Having stayed here for a few months, they found that it is the rural economy has also taken the hit in the pandemic. Why? Now let us see why the rural economy has taken the hit. Rural economy is basically based on is dependent on the urban economy. If the income earning capacity of the people have gone down in the urban areas, how it impacts? It impacts not only the urban, it also impacts the rural area. Now, from the rural area, the supply chain was completely disrupted, and thereby what happened? the rural economy itself suffered in not only in Odisha but also in other areas. So this has affected a multiple effect. Pandemic, I must say, has affected both urban India and also rural India. That is the need for pump priming. Pump priming is basically the putting in money by the government and other industrial units, whereby the economy kicks off. So to get out of this pandemic, we need to do a lot of public spending so that the industrial activity, construction activity as well picks up, which will boost the rural economy again, raising the livestock or crop or whatever you may call it. This will again get a boost only when the public spending increases.
Thank you, Mr. Nanda. Thank you. I think that one thing I know is that definitely, in the rural, you have something that in the urban you don't have, and that's the livestock. All right. So in many countries, we recognize our cars and houses as assets that can be insured and used as collateral for mortgage. India, right, according to the 2019 survey, has 192 million cattle, and that is the second largest cattle population in the world. Right. So that is at least $50 billion worth of livestock asset being locked up as state capital. Now, in your opinion, how can a farmer turn his livestock into assets, into formal assets that can be recognized by the financial institutions, right, and unlock this value that is trapped inside the livestock? Right, Dr. Rajesh Warren.
Yeah, thank you. That's a nice word you used, doctor. That's an excellent word. I mean, it is still locked up, and it is not being used. The basic problem in the unlocking is the information asymmetry problem. Information asymmetry leading to adverse selection and moral hazard. Adverse selection takes place before you give the loan, and moral hazard takes place after giving the loan. So these are the information asymmetry problem, and this information asymmetry problem not only affects the financial services like insurance and credit, but also the input marketing and output marketing. So this is a pan problem. This is not a problem about only financial inclusion as such. So the solution lies outside this particular purview of removing the problem of information asymmetry. So as of now, I'll just stop by saying that if the basic problem of information asymmetry is removed in terms of by policy and in collaboration with the people who are involved. Today, instead of organic certification, we go for PGS, Producer Guarantee System. Okay, all of us know about it. Why? Because it's a self-control system. Vis-a-vis a third-party monitoring system, a self-control system. A PGS plus a blockchain technology plus a smart contract, we are in a different world altogether. So I will just stop by saying that one is the problem is basically information asymmetry, which can be overcome by PGS, which is a producer guarantee system, number one, and a verifiable database system, which I think could be it is already being done. It's not that, for example, in states, every piece of meat which you eat has a complete traceback mechanism, complete. And this is not very far away. This is also about just 10 years ago they started. This is a consumer movement. So as of now, I just stop by saying that if the consumer wants a particular thing of a particular quality and a particular trait with a GI tag, etc., if we provide that opportunity, I think we are in business. And all the livelihood space gets immediately in a different paradigm altogether.
So it seems like the crux to the problem is the information gap and the information asymmetry. So is that the same view that's shared by Aditi, or what is your view from an MFI perspective about turning livestock into MFI recognized assets?
So, like I said, and even I agree with Professor Rajeshwaran, which he mentioned that work has actually started in that direction. In fact, I myself was surprised to know that 1 million cattle has already been tagged by the government of India. They have a scheme called ENAF, and where in fact 3 million calves are born by, 3 million calves are born by this artificial insemination to give a better pedigree and lactation, etc. So while the government started its initiative and like 10 million animals which are tagged, which gives a good actually head start to us. But that again is, Roy, as you put it, a dead capital. But what we can do is we have immense data in that case. 10 million is a lot of animals. It's like 1/3 or 1/4 of animals. 1/3 if we go by your data, and 1/4 if you go anyway. So that being said, if I talk about microfinance, like whenever we give loan, we also mandated by RBI to look at the annual income of the household. And for rural India, for instance, it has to be a 160,000. And in urban India, it has to be a 200,000. But honestly, we actually have no means to know the real income. We just assume what it is because we have no ITRs of these people. We have no salary sheets. So how do we really know that what is the income? So if you're right, and since we have a large set of clients who own cattle, so if they are properly, there's a proper data set, and we also know the lactation, we also know the yield, the kind of income they can produce, that can actually make our lives a lot easier in terms of income assessment and assessing the ticket size, the loan which we can give, whether we have to give a 20,000 INR or a 40,000 INR. It can't be the same for two people with a same. For us, it's a buffalo, but one buffalo is worth much better than the other. And that's where I think data can actually help.
Thank you. That's a question that I'm about to ask later. And Mr. Nanda, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, you started with a basic question whether the livestock can be considered as an asset for the farmers, and right. In fact, the rural India is basically dependent on two things. One is agriculture, that is crop, and another is this livestock, cows, buffaloes, and all these things. These are the, so we just have to, we just cannot say that it is agriculture alone which is important for the farmer. The livestock is a very, very important part of their income source. In fact, it is very much necessary that we should have a proper record of their livestock, for the simple reason that at the moment most of the farmers are working in the unorganized sector. In the unorganized sector, it is nobody knows whether it is an asset of a particular farmer, or it belongs to A, or it belongs to B. We do not know. So there are a lot of information dissemination if it doesn't take place. And we, from the insurance perspective also, I will say that when we identify these animals for the purpose of providing insurance cover, we are sometimes, we do not know whether it is owned by A or it is owned by B. And there are also cases of fraud where somebody takes an insurance on the wrong animal and takes the benefit. These are the things which are, and the right person is deprived. So these are the things which we should take care of. It's a very much important part of their asset, and it must be given the due recognition through giving a proper identification. Proper identification of the assets is very much necessary for this farmers, the small farm and marginal farmers.
Sure, thank you. Thank you. I think that mention about the governments taking 1 million cattle and creating a cattle registry. But when we talk about livestock registry, the image it conjures in our mind is a database containing the livestock details and the identity. But can just a livestock registry be enough for it to be used for financial purposes? Because in the financial industry, the way the regulation, the way data security works is very different from the original purpose of livestock registry. So what are the challenges that needs to be overcome in order for this livestock registry to be qualified and to be accepted for use by the financial industry?
Yeah. So I'll just come to solving the problem. Registry. And registry has to start from identification of the animal. Aditi was talking about identity. This is a number-based, it's a data-based number-based. This is not per se, when this was the computers invented. A 10-digit number was not enough. A computer was invented. We have moved a number to a barcode to a QR code. And QR code, and I am very, very strongly of the opinion that we have to shift to a IPv6 mode of a unique identification of each livestock has to be using IPv6, nothing less than IPv6. Okay, so we have to move from number to a barcode to a QR code. These are all per se history. And if the registry has to start in any credible manner, which will support the financial industry, which will support the insurance industry and inputs and outputs, I think that is a starting point. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Aditi, Nanda, do you have anything to add?
One thing I would like to add, we have in India a very good system of the government has introduced, which is called the Aadhaar system, Aadhaar card. Aadhaar card is a unique identification system of the persons, of the population. Now, it has been linked to so many things. It has been linked to bank account. It has been linked to so many other things, your mobile, everything. Now, I am just putting an idea. Why not link the assets of the small and marginal farmers? The assets includes the livestock, of course. And why not link it to the Aadhaar, whereby the real identity of the animal and and to whom it belongs to will be made in very crystal clear. So thereby, we will be in a position to catch the data. This can be for insurance purpose or for the financial institution. This can be very easily done. So I think the Aadhaar system should work.
So I guess the definition of livestock registry has to be expanded, right, in the more than its current form, in order for it to be applied to the financial industry, and then for it to be used to unlock the value of livestock, right, for the farmers, right. Now, maybe a question from Mr. Nanda. Now, from your experience, just now you just mentioned about the fraud activities. Can you share with us your experience in the insurance industry? What kind of fraud can take place in the livestock insurance? What are the ways that insurance companies can do to prevent this, and how can technology help with it?
Yes. In the traditional system, how we are identifying the animals? We are identifying the animals through a tagging system. A tag is provided is actually punched to the animal, and a specific number is given, whereby and that number is recorded in our registers. And if the animal dies, then we collect the tag, and then we sell. That is a traditional system. But in this system, there are lots of scope for fraud, because sometimes people will say that somehow the tag is lost. So somebody will say that this tag is actually this number is not properly visible, and all these things. And as I was telling you, that the animal belonging to A is actually B is trying to take advantage of the thing. The color of the animal, the tag, everything is manipulated to get advantage of insurance cover. Now, here it is important that this identification of animal can be very well done through a microchip system. If we put microchips and the same is already captured in our record, then we should be in a position to avoid this type of fraud. And at the same time, as I was telling you, regarding the use of the Aadhaar system, Aadhaar card, this unique identification number which is there, it can be linked. This card can be linked to the asset also, whereby we will be able to get the data online. There will be no question of fraud. And collusions can be collusion between the government officials, the farmers, and all these things. This can also be avoided. So I think the capturing the data, the livestock registry which you are telling, the capturing the data in our system is very much essential for a proper insurance cover to be given to the persons and claims to be disbursed in a rightful manner.
Okay, thank you. That means the livestock registry need to address the problem of authenticity and not just a matter of recording, and prevention from data manipulation. And preferably, this information cannot be tampered with physically and digitally. And there must be a link between how to protect these two sides, right, of the problems, right? So thank you, Mr. Nanda. And a question for Aditi. I think this is a very interesting one. Now, the microfinance has played a central role in financial inclusion. Now, can you share with us from your experience, right, how would the Livestock Registry and data be able to help with the credit assessments for farmers? Right. I mean, you mentioned just now rightfully that a lot of data that you've captured, you don't know actually whether how accurate it is, right? So, but if you're able to capture high quality data and accurate data that is tamper proof and authentic enough to prove the farmers' asset ownership, right? How would that affect their loan eligibility?
So, like I partly answered that earlier. So, the thing is that actually it helps a microfinance institution to assess the real income of that farmer and to actually give them, so like microfinance institutions use several tools now. So, and they also use credit history, so the credit bureau data, etc. But that can only give a past reference. So credit bureau can tell me whether or not the client has ever defaulted on her loan servicing. But going forward, even if she's a good client, am I actually doing her a service or a justice in terms of sanctioning a particular loan? Because across India, our clients have a common complaint that you are not disbursing enough, we need a higher ticket loan.
Okay, and maybe I can ask a question in another way. If I'm not wrong, the micro loan limit in India is 1.25 lakh.
Yeah, so that's the overall intended.
So how long does it take for a borrower to build up enough of a credit score to actually borrow the full sum of 1.25 lakh?
It takes her 3 cycles, at least 3 cycles.
How long is 3 cycles?
So 3 cycles would be 5 to 6 years. Because
5 to 6 years.
She has to prove her credit.
5 to 6 years.
Yes, she has to.
So if this is the case, right, how many, don't mind me asking, right, how many of the borrowers are in Satin actually qualify for 1.25 lakh of credit?
So very less. Only I think 25% who have actually done this.
Okay. So let's say if you have access to the livestock data, and you can prove that the farmer, right, all things being equal, he owns, let's say, 3 cattle. Each cattle, let's say, is $500, right? So he has actually 1,500 worth of asset, right? Is that going to fast track the building up of the credit score, in your opinion?
Well, Roy, for us, that won't be enough because that is only the value which we get after.
But would it help?
It will help if we also have information about the lactation, etc., about how much the animal is actually able to contribute in terms of household income. Because our data is serviced by the cash flows. So the cash flow
productivity will have to play an important role, right? Yes. But step one is that you must have authentic data first, right? And then the rest of the data can be tied in, right, and be associated with this information, right? And like what Mr. Nanda said, the other, right, again, has to have a safe link, right, to this animal so that the ownership, right, can be managed in a trusted way, right?
No, so you're right. It's helpful that we should know that, of course, it's a new animal that is purchased. It's not that she's showing her neighbor's buffalo and saying, you gave me a loan and I purchased this buffalo out of that loan.
Yes.
If it's a unique identification, that at least gives us the comfort that the money is spent in the right direction. And if she has actually purchased a buffalo, she will sell milk and pay us back. I will take it down.
Yeah. So in this case, right, I'm going to lead to my next question, and this will involve both loans and insurance company. I will come back to Dr. Nanda because it will tie into what he said earlier on. Right now, Mr. Nanda, what is the percentage of beneficiaries from the livestock insurance policies that goes to the woman versus the man of the household? And my question to Ms. Aditi is that if the best beneficiaries of the livestock insurance are women, how would that changes your risk assessments for the household, bearing in mind that my MFI lends to the women?
Immensely for us, because our borrowers are only women.
Okay,
so we are
maybe we can hear from Mr. Nanda first about what is the makeup of men versus women as beneficiaries.
Yes. these are about so what Aditi is speaking is about the microfinance institutions. Basically, as you know about the Mission Shakti in Odisha, which is here only the women are basically the loans are being given to the women. But one important segment is also the banks, public sector banks. The public.
No, but what about
banks
insurance? What about insurance?
I'm,
Is the beneficiary?
No, that's what I'm telling, that the public sector banks are also giving loans to the male, where the farmers, not the women, the male. So what happens actually, from our records, what we have found is that it is almost 50-50. It is not that the entire beneficiary group belongs to the women's sector. No. But maybe it is possible that many are left out. That's a different thing. That is how we have to financial inclusion. When you talk of financial inclusion, we have to bring the women also to our fold. So that is why people are working in this women development programs. We are working for this purpose only. Now, as far as the insurance beneficiaries are concerned, at the moment, I will say that it is male and female equally divided because the women, men are also taking loan from the various public sector banks and purchasing the livestock.
Right. So will it be easier for the women to borrow? Like if let's say the livestock is insured under the women's name, does it make any difference? Okay,
let me put it, from our experience, we have found that if it is a female borrower and if it is a female insured, so far as livestock is concerned, the chances of fraud are less.
Okay.
Chances of fraud are less.
Same experience of microfinance.
And because the female, they are more concerned about and caring about the maintenance of the animal and about keeping them in proper health. All these things are being done by the women in a proper manner. The self-help group, self-help group is a very great development which has taken place in the country. And we have found that the self-help groups are basically the women, women participate in this, are the members of the self-help groups. And what they own, that the livestock which they own, definitely they take care of it. And if misfortune takes place, of course, they are the beneficiaries. But otherwise, I think it is a good record for the claims ratio is much lesser so far as the females are concerned.
Right. Thank you. So we've heard a lot from the finance side of the ecosystem. Now we're going to shift the focus to the livestock side of the ecosystem. Right, Dr. Rajesh Warren. So from your experience as the scholar and academic with the wealth of knowledge spanning 38 years in the dairy chain industry, right, what do you think that the veterinary service industry can do to empower this data to be used by the financial industry, right, to unlock the value in the livestock, in the livestock assets?
I'll start by saying that before it starts getting information gets benefit to the industry, financial sector or insurance sector or any other sector, it should be beneficial to the farmer herself first thing. If it becomes beneficial to me, then everyone should get benefited. Okay. The point here, I think Aditi also already sort of flagged that particular issue of what lactation will kill. She was talking about lactation graph. Okay. I'm sure that by my experience, I can tell you that 99.99% of the farmers and the professionals working in this sector. So I'm a veterinarian. I'm talking about with the respect to the profession I am alumnus of it. Not a single person knows that the milk yield, if it starts at 12, it has to by 60th day of lactation, it has to increase to 25%. If it starts at 10, it should go to 12.5, and by day 300 lactation of the day, it should be 7.5. So plus 25 minus 25, that is this is the graph it should come to. So if this data can be captured on a weekly basis or even a 10-day basis, 95% cover is assured, 95%. And this based on this
data, right, requires the veterinary officer to capture it. Someone with a qualified or certified skills. Otherwise, how do you trust this data that's been collected?
not a third party. Third party cannot do it, should not do it also. It's extremely costly. That's why I already said PGS, I told you. Producer guarantee system is a system. Okay. So first is capturing of data and veracity, number one. Number two, classification of animal into A, B, C classification. A class, B class only will be given credit. A class will be given a much more credit. Obviously, you will give a higher credit, and B class will be given an X amount of credit. Means A class will be high credit, and C class no credit at all. Sorry, we don't provide any credit or insurance to the C class animal. Okay, that is the first thing it has to. So,
what are the challenges? What are the challenges from a veterinary's perspective? Is it going to build a livestock registry that can cover the whole India, right, to capture the kind of data that you're talking about?
It is possible. Today, with a cell phone facility and application, it is, and it is just a positive stroking. If an animal becomes, if a C class animal is brought into a B class, or a B class animal is brought into A class, in terms of growth rate, in terms of production, then that person should get the benefit of insurance and the credit. Okay.
Correct.
But for the credit insurance, let me please, please, I will just caution and I'll stop there. Please note that today the milk is sold on credit basis. Even if it is a half a liter, even if it is 50 cents, the 50 cents does not come to you immediately. It comes to you after a gap of 7 days or 10 days or 1 month or 2 months. You get the point? So all this lauding of, I just flag by saying that all this lauding of the dairy sector, so-called it's a financial inclusion, they say, it is not so. Cash on delivery, I am with you. And it is possible. DBT, direct benefit transfer, if you can, I get the milk from you, I pay the milk, I pay the amount directly gets transferred to the account of yours. It is possible, and that is the starting point. Before even credit or insurance, etc., short-term credit, long-term credit, we will not talk about it. First, that you give me cash today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh Warren. I think that we have summed up by linking up all the concept and knowledge from everyone. I guess our time is up. Am I right?
Yes, Mr. Loy. And thank you very much for a wonderful session today here. And thank you to all our panelists in this session. It has been actually indeed a very interesting conversation.